Hello, I'm Ness-Sonnemaker of Catalyst Fitness, and this is Valerie Ness, fitness model and personal trainer. We're here to demonstrate to you the Catalyst Fitness morning core routine. This routine is designed to be performed in the morning immediately upon rising. Take the time to use the restroom. If you have animals, go ahead and let them out. While they're doing their business, it's time for you to do your business. It's time for you to take care of yourself. These exercises are designed to be performed at 50 to 70% of your maximal intensity. This means that if at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, when you're fully awake, you're able to perform 20 repetitions of one of these exercises, we'd only expect you to perform 10 to 14 repetitions first thing in the morning. Another way of looking at it would be on a scale of 1 to 10, work to an intensity level of somewhere between 5 and 7, and then move on to the next exercise. These exercises are spinal stabilization based exercises, meaning that there's little to no movement of the spine or pelvis. So again, immediately upon rising, take the time to use the restroom, drop down to the floor and perform your exercises, and then move forward with your day. Make sure to get some good breakfast in, and then off to work. TVA Draw-In. TVA stands for transverse abdominis. Your transverse abdominis are your horizontal muscle fibers that hold in your organs like a belt or a girdle. They also help to stabilize the spine and the pelvis by increasing intra-abdominal pressure. We're going to take Valerie into the quadruped position. That means she's going to make an L with her pointer finger and her thumb somewhere around approximately the middle of the chest. This allows her to have her neck nice and elongated and her shoulder blades retracted and depressed. Nice neutral spine position. Valerie is going to let the stomach drop down towards the floor in a nice relaxed position. She's then going to take a deep breath in. As she takes this deep breath in, she's going to then exhale. And as she exhales, she's going to draw the navel into the spine and up into her chest. She's going to hold this position for 6 seconds at a minimum and a maximum of 20 seconds. She's now held it for 6 seconds. She's now going to take a deep breath in, relaxing. She gets 1 recovery breath, which means she goes in, she goes out. On the second breath, she takes a deep breath in here. Exhaling. As she exhales, she draws that navel into the spine and up into the chest. Again, she's going to hold for somewhere between 6 to 20 seconds. After she's held at least a minimum of 6 seconds, she now on her second repetition is going to get 2 recovery breaths. So she's in and out on that first recovery breath. Here's her second recovery breath, breathing in, breathing out. On this third breath, she's going to breathe in. She's going to exhale. As she does, she draws the navel into the spine, up into the chest, holds again for somewhere between 6 to 20 seconds, and then she's going to get an additional 2 recovery breaths from here on out for each repetition that she does. Ideally, she's going to perform somewhere between 3 to 5 repetitions per set. To progress this exercise, we can have Valerie drop down to her forearms, and so the elbow now is going to be directly below her shoulder. Again, we're going to let the stomach just hang down, kind of let gravity do the work here. So what we're doing here is that our pelvis acts like a bowl or a girdle to hold our organs and intestines in. When we're in the standing position, all the force is at the bottom of the pelvis. There's not much force on the sides or the walls of the pelvis. As we go to a quadruped position, we've now increased the pressure on this front wall here, or the front side of our bowl, if we're calling our pelvis a bowl. To increase the intensity, if we tip that bowl over a little bit, the things are going to run out of that bowl more quickly, or at least want to run out of that bowl. So by dropping down to the forearms, it's now going to be more intense. So she's going to take a deep breath in. As she exhales, drawing that navel into the spine and up into the chest. Again, holding 6 to 20 seconds. The reason that we have her hold 6 to 20 seconds is that we're trying to activate type 1 muscle fibers. They respond best to time under tension with a tension range or a time period range of 6 to 20 seconds. Again, we still have another progression that we can do. We can take a foam roller and we're going to slide this just below her knees, on her shins, just like that. So she's actually on the tibia, not on the knee. So clients that have knee issues, I haven't run into any problems here because again, she's on her shin, not actually on the knee itself. We've increased the angle here. Everything in her pelvis is now wanting to run down towards her head and her chest. If she takes a deep breath in, exhales, she draws the navel in. And Valerie, can you feel this with greater intensity whether your knees are on the roller or with just your elbows on the ground as compared to a normal quadruped position. Excellent. Again, holding each repetition for approximately 6 seconds at a minimum and a maximum of 20 seconds. Ideally perform 3 to 5 repetitions per set. Prone pillow squeezes. Valerie's going to assume a prone position on her stomach. She's going to interlace her fingertips together so that she can lie her forehead on her fingertips so that she can keep a nice neutral spine, leaving room for her to breathe between her nose and her mouth and the ground. She's going to place a pillow between her feet. She's going to keep her knees at 90 degrees, keep her ankles at 90 degrees. And what she's going to do is she's going to squeeze this pillow with approximately 50 to 70% intensity of a squeeze. As she does that, she's also going to activate her glutes, going from an anterior pelvic tilt where she is in the prone position to pushing her pubic bone into the ground, squeezing the glutes, trying to get to posterior tilt, but really she's going to end up more in just a neutral spine position. Doing nothing here with the upper back here, just nice and relaxing. She's going to squeeze and hold for 1 to 2 seconds. Again, approximately 50 to 70% intensity on each squeeze. And the repetition range is going to, again, relate to somewhere between 50 to 70% of her maximum intensity. Notice as she squeezes, we can see her glutes activate and glutes fire. This is an exercise that really will help people turn on their glutes in the morning and so that their glutes are activating and firing properly throughout the day, thus avoiding gluteal lambation. Quadruped pillow squeezes. Valerie is going to assume a quadruped position. We're going to place a pillow between her feet and ankles, just like this. She can gently plantar flex her feet here. We're going to bring her hips slightly forward of this quadruped position here. We're going to let her lumbar spine sag and be heavy, just letting gravity do the work here. And what we're going to do is have her squeeze the pillow. She's going to hold the squeeze for 1 to 2 seconds with a 50 to 70% intensity of a squeeze, and the repetition range is going to be 50 to 70% of her maximum intensity. So she squeezes the pillow. As she squeezes the pillow, she should feel some tension through her glutes. Again, quadruped pillow squeezes. Kneeling pillow squeezes. Valerie is going to get on her knees. She's going to stay nice and tall. She's going to retract and depress her shoulder blades. She's going to place the pillow between her feet here. Again, she's going to squeeze the pillow with approximately 50 to 70% intensity of a squeeze or contraction, and she's going to perform a repetition range of 50 to 70% of her maximum intensity. It's important that she maintains a nice neutral spine, shoulder blades retracted and depressed. Her palms should be facing her thighs. And as she squeezes, she's really wanting to not only squeeze the pillow, but think about activating those glutes and squeezing the glutes at the same time. Belt seated knee presses. Using a nylon strap, or you could use even a leather belt or canvas belt, Valerie's going to place this around her knees. She's also going to be seated on the edge of a chair or bench. She wants to scoot forward so that she's barely seated. She's really resting on her ischial tuberosities on her sit bones. She's going to make sure to keep her knees, foot and ankle at 90-degree angles. Again, she's seated almost all the way forward on the edge there, keeping a nice, maybe almost over-accentuated neutral spine, giving a little bit of lumbar lordosis. She's going to have her hands at her side. She's going to retract and depress her scapula, pull her head back just a little bit like this. Now, she's going to externally rotate her knees or press her knees out like she's trying to touch my hands for an isometric contraction, meaning that she holds that contraction for 1 to 2 seconds. And she's going to perform the repetitions that are going to give her an intensity of 50 to 70% of her maximal intensity. Again, it's very important that she maintains a nice, good posture here, almost over-accentuating the neutral spine and pressing out, holding 1 to 2 seconds. The name of this exercise is belt seated knee presses. Glute bridge. Valerie's going to assume a supine position. She's going to lie on her back, take her arms into a double L position. We have her move her arms into this double L position for two reasons. One, to help open up the chest and shoulders, get a nice good stretch. And then secondly, to prevent her from going into this protracted shoulder position, which we refer to often as the North American gorilla posture, where she's pushing her palms down into the ground to perform the exercise. We don't want to reinforce that motor pattern. So again, she's in this double L position. She walks her feet out so that her knees are at approximately 90 degrees. Her hip, her knee, and her toes are lined up. She's going to then lift her feet into dorsiflexion. She's going to use her glutes to drive up, lifting her belly button towards the ceiling. At this point, we now have two options. The first option is for her just to hold this position. The second option is for her to go up and down for repetitions. Again, if we go back to that first option, it would be much like a plank. She's going to hold the position for an isometric contraction. I recommend that the first few weeks that you're starting the Catalyst Fitness morning core routine, that you work on these isometric contractions to focus on increasing intramuscular coordination. At the point that you can do 20 to 30 seconds without a problem, then you would move on to doing the repetitions so that you're not only getting intramuscular coordination, but you're getting intermuscular coordination, where the muscle groups are working with each other to move you up and down through eccentric, concentric, and isometric contractions of the core musculature. This exercise again is called Glute Bridge. Quadruped opposite arm leg reaches. Valerie is going to assume a quadruped position, making her pointer finger and her thumb an L. She's going to place that into the middle of her chest. That allows her to retract and depress her scapula, extending her neck. Nice, good form here. A little bit of a neutral spine here, just like this. Excellent. She's going to begin by extending her left arm and her right leg. As she extends that left arm, she's going to lift the thumb up. She's doing a great job of keeping her hips and her pelvis level here, just like that. She's going to hold this for time. So initially, I recommend that for the first few weeks of your program, you hold this for a time count instead of performing repetitions in and out. She's going to then hold for the specified time that she wants based on 50 to 70% of her maximal intensity. She's going to then bring her arm and knee in, setting them down, switching to the other side. She's now going to lift her right arm and her left leg, extending both of those. Again, she's keeping this hip down. That makes this hip on the opposite side, on the stance leg, work that much more challenging. Now, if we want to regress the exercise, we'll take her back to the quadruped position. And she's going to just begin, the easiest regression is for her just to extend an arm. So Valerie, extend one of your arms, please. She's just going to do that. What we're doing here is we're decreasing her base of support with any of these exercises. The more that we take away her base of support, the longer we extend her limbs, the more challenging it is going to be to her spine and her pelvis and her core. So the next progression would be for her to put her arm down, and now for her to just extend one of her legs. Again, she's going to hold this for time. Once she's mastered that, then she can go to performing repetitions. The name of this exercise is quadruped opposite arm leg reach. Prone presses. Valerie's going to assume a prone position, meaning on her stomach. She's going to dorsiflex her feet, bringing her toes towards her shins. She's going to keep her glutes nice and taut by activating them, pushing her pubic bone into the ground. She's also going to keep that navel drawn in towards her spine. She's then going to lift her arms up off the ground, keeping her hands higher than her elbows. She's going to reach up over her head, performing a shoulder press. As she does, she breathes out. As she brings her arms back down towards her sides, she's going to breathe in, and then she extends her arms again up over her head. Then she's breathing in as she comes back. Her repetition range again is going to be between 50 to 70% of her maximal intensity. The name of this exercise, once again, is prone presses. Cobra. Valerie's going to assume a prone position on her stomach with her hands overhead. We begin by checking with her feet, making sure her feet are in dorsiflexion. Glutes are activated, pushing her pubic bone into the ground. Navel's drawn in towards her spine, hands are above the ground. She's going to slowly move her arms back. As she gets to about the 90-degree mark, she's going to begin to externally rotate her thumbs, lift her head and chest. Now notice that we want to make sure she's not coming up too high. If she's coming up too high, chances are she's pushing her stomach out, in order to perform the movement at that range of motion. So by keeping the navel in, it's going to prevent her from lifting her head and chest too high. So she just comes up just a little bit and then holds this position and then takes her hands back towards her head. Again, she's going to perform a repetition range that's at 50 to 70% of her maximum intensity, pausing at the top, coming down nice and slow, slow controlled movements throughout. Again, the name of this exercise is Cobra. Prone plank. Valerie is going to assume a prone position. She's going to make sure to keep her elbows under her shoulders. We begin by placing the feet in a dorsiflexed position, glutes nice and tight to support her low back. We want to make sure that her spine doesn't sag. If anything, we'd rather have her hips higher to reduce pressure on her low back versus having them sag. But ideally, nice neutral spine, the back of her head, mid part of her shoulders, her hips, and her feet, one nice continuous line. Notice how her elbows are under her shoulders and her hands slightly come forward to make a triangle. Make sure that you don't squeeze your fists tightly. You can have them closed, but again, don't squeeze them tightly. You want blood and energy to be able to flow back and forth. We're going to perform this exercise for time instead of repetitions. What that means is we're going to hold it for approximately, let's say, 20 to 30 seconds versus performing the 20 to 30 repetitions. Again, she performs this exercise for a maximum intensity of somewhere between 50 and 70%. To regress this exercise, to make it easier, we're going to let her drop down to her knees. She's going to bring her heels towards her butt. So she's going to come up like this, and ideally she lowers her hips in there. She might need to walk her elbows out just a little bit. But what we've done here is we've shortened her lever. So this makes it easier. Notice she's not actually on her knees. She's right above her knees. Okay? Again, this makes the exercise easier, so if you're having a hard time or your client's having a hard time performing the exercise from their toes first thing in the morning, let them start in this regressed position. As they improve, they'll be able to eventually do it from their toes. Again, the name of this exercise is prone plank. Side plank. Valerie's going to assume a side lying position on her left side. She's going to make sure to keep her left elbow a little bit below her shoulder so that when she lifts herself up, the elbow will be directly below the shoulder. She's got a nice straight line going on here with her body, keeping a slight bend in her knees so that her knees aren't hyperextended. Her head's nice and level here, and her elbow is just below her shoulder. This is a great position. She's going to hold this position. Okay? Now, if she needs to regress the exercise because the exercise is too challenging, she's going to lower herself down to her hip. She's going to bring her heels back, pull her knees back, driving her hips forward just like this, keeping her glutes nice and tight so that they're helping to stabilize that low back and pelvis. Again, lower this head down just a little. Side plank position. Again, regress position if it's too challenging. If we need to progress the exercise to make it more challenging, we can do it from the feet. Again, she's going to perform the exercise and hold it for time instead of repetitions, and she performs 50 to 70% of her maximum intensity, and then she would move on to the next exercise. One more time, the name of this exercise is side plank.